Okay, welcome to another webinar provided to you by TeamDrive. We will go ahead and get started. So, my name is Kenneth Flanders, and yeah, I'll be your informative person for the day. So, TeamDrive, think smarter, share safer. So, today's webinar revolves around joining previously existing spaces on a new device. So, that would be our focus today. So, seamless transitions, joining your existing spaces on a new computer. Again, my name is Kenneth Flanders, and I'm a technical customer support manager. So, our mission for today. Today, we would like to walk through methods of regaining access to spaces after a new installation. And we will talk about four ways that we can go about doing so. One is an automatic method known on our end as the key repository. Second method would be the self invite, inviting yourself. The third method would be to import local space keys. And the fourth method would be to import those same space keys, however, from the key repository. So we'll dive right in and start with method one. So automatic invitations via the key repository. And to begin with that, I will just start my TeamDrive app. So just to give a brief introduction or explanation of how the automatic invitations work or in which situations you would receive these automatic uh, invitations to the spaces. So after a new installation, once you've logged in, and also in the event that you have not changed your password during the login process, you will be automatically invited to some of your existing spaces. Not all of them, but some of them. In most cases, it's the spaces you were most recently active in. So again, I'll go ahead and start my TeamDrive app so we can walk through that together. All right, so we have my TeamDrive app here, and as you can see, everything is appearing as if I have initiated a new installation. So as my first step, I will need to log in. And we can skip through the slideshow here. Just click X here. And now we have a fresh TeamDrive installation with no active spaces. So I simply go to my menu here, and that was quite quick. You see I have inactive spaces. And if I click on inactive spaces, I see that I have three spaces that I have either created in the past or that I was a member of in the past. And in one of my most recent installations, I was also active, or I had these spaces as active spaces in my most recent installation. So as you see, as long as you log in and you do not change your password during the login process, you will be automatically invited to your most previous active spaces. So this um, this type of automatic invitation works through a function that we call the key repository. And in order for this function to be available to you, the key repository has to be enabled. So we'll just go into the settings to see where we can, or where the key repository is enabled. So we just click here on the small sprocket, And if we go to backup, we can see more information about our keys. And here we have the function backup keys on the server. So as long as this function so this is the key repository. So here you have a full explanation of it, and you see we call this feature the key repository. So as long as this is enabled, your keys will be securely, your space keys will be securely backed up on the server. As a default setting, the key repository is turned on. So that means you would have to intentionally um, disable this feature in order for your keys to not be backed up on the server. This is also a feature that only works with our cloud server as well. So if you have a self-hosted solution, um, WebDAV or a TeamDrive personal server, um, well, actually, the keys are actually also backed up there. That's incorrect. The keys are also, I'm thinking about a different feature. The keys are also backed up there, so that's not an issue. But again, as long as the key repository is enabled, and once you log in, you don't change your password during the login process, you will have access to whichever keys are stored in the key repository. Okay, so the next method would be the self-invite. So a self-invite is very useful. I think it's a very quick method to regain access to your spaces. And I also think, in my experience, that it's a very it's a method that's very simple, very simple. So I'll activate one of my spaces, say my first space. Oh, 1 second. I think I already have it there. That's why it has a different name. We'll just leave it. Okay. Then we'll just try again with key repo space. Okay, so that looks fine. So now the space is recovering. And let's say, for example, you have or I have installed TeamDrive on an additional device. I have a second laptop or I have a second PC. Doesn't matter what kind it is. I have a second PC and I log in, and for whatever reason, my keys don't show up, which is not likely if you um, haven't changed your password. But let's say you did change your password and now your keys aren't showing up because you've changed your password. And the reason your keys won't show up if you change your password is because the space keys that are stored in the key repository are partially encrypted with your user password. So once you change your user password, you lose access to the keys stored in the key repository. So that explains why that would not work anymore. Okay, so let's say during an additional installation, I couldn't remember my password and I changed my password during the login process. So now I have an empty team drive and I'm unable to import any keys from the key repository. Okay, so what I would simply do is go to one of my existing installations. It could be on a desktop device or on a mobile device. As long as you're logged in and have access to your spaces, that's the most important. So I would simply go here. I click on I, information, and then I will go to members. And I would find my username. Right now, I'm the only person in the space, so it's very simple. I will find my username, and then I will go here and click re-invite. And what re-invite does is it sends an invitation to all of my active devices. So if I have multiple active devices, it will send an invitation to all of those devices, and Any device that doesn't have access to this space will see an invitation in it. If I already have access to the space on a certain device, no invitation will appear because the app knows I'm already actively in this space. So again, I believe self-invite is one of the least complicated methods to regain access to your spaces. So moving right along, our next option would be to import space keys via a local backup file. Okay, so let's go back to our TeamDrive app. Okay, so to import a space key, we go back into the settings by clicking here on the sprocket, and we would like to go back to the section backup. Once we are in the section backup, we go down to import keys. So we click there, and then we have two options. We import from the server, we will do that in the next step, or we import from a backup file. So once we import from a backup file, your Finder, if you're using Mac, or the Windows Explorer will open. You can't see it now, you can't see it here, but this window will open and you will see a list of backup files. It automatically opens your TeamDrive backup directory. So actually I can show where the backup directory is. So this is the default backup directory. So you see your backups folder is stored in your spaces folder. So if there's any question whether or not you have backup files, you have uh, backup files for your keys, you can go into your spaces folder and there you will be able to find your backups folder. Okay, so once you click import keys and we import from a local backup file, TeamDrive will automatically open this location and display all backup files stored in that location. So it's always our recommendation to select all backup files available that you have available, select all of them, and once you have selected all of them, you hit open. You may have seen it very quickly. There was a small spinning of a wheel. That was the that was TeamDrive processing the import. So once the import has been processed, it's very quick. It's very quick, so you often don't see it. You simply go back and then you go to inactive spaces. And we see we have two inactive spaces. Before we had three. I left one because of a name issue, and then I joined one, the key repo space. And then I only had one left. But now it says we have two new ones. So we see it's the space that I left, my first space, and an additional space that we didn't see before, web app space. Because again, web app space was not active in one of my most recent installations. Therefore, when I logged in, I did not automatically receive an invitation to this space. Okay, so we'll activate my first space. So now we go back to spaces and we see my first space is now being activated. So we were able to successfully import a space key via a local backup file and activate the space. Okay, and our fourth and final method, a manual import from the key repository. So we'll just open our app again. Okay, so a manual import. And if we go to inactive spaces, we see I already have two. And in total, I had four spaces. So what I will do here, just for example purposes, I will leave this space and I would leave this space. Okay, just for example purposes, so I can import space keys from the server. Okay, so now to import the keys, again, we click here on the sprocket above to get into the settings, and then we go to backup. Okay, once in backup, we once again click on import keys. However, this time we choose the option import from server. And what happens here is all the backup keys stored on the server that you have access to are imported. And what I mean when I say that you have access to, I mean that um, the ones that are currently encrypted with your current password. Okay, so we go back, and if we go back to the main menu, we see we have two inactive spaces again. Once we view our inactive spaces, we see we have successfully imported um, the VFS space and the web app space. The spaces are not active. We still need to activate them, but they have been imported into our app. So let's just activate the VFS space. The space is a little larger, so it may take a little longer to join, um, but that's not an issue. But we have successfully imported the space, and we're in the process of successfully activating the space. So we don't need to wait for that process. Oh, okay, it's restoring local backup files, which means the space has been successfully joined, and the space will soon be active. So as we can see, here, files are being downloaded, and we can just check out the activities while we're here, and we see files are being downloaded. So space had a few more files than my other two spaces, so it needed a little time, but that's totally fine. Okay, so we don't need to wait until this is finished. We can move right along. Okay, and a quick recap of everything we discussed today, or everything I discussed today. So moving to a new computer doesn't mean starting over. You can rely on automatic server backups, inviting yourself from a mobile device, use local backup using local backup files, or to manually pull your keys from the server in order to regain access to your spaces. So if you haven't already installed and tried out TeamDrive, feel free to download it now. You can visit our website and go to our downloads page and get started using TeamDrive. Thank you for your time and enjoy synchronizing your data.